Welcome everyone back to round number 4 of the Gym Challenge Winter Cup here at Factura Plays in Big River, California. We are happy to welcome you back to the stream after a nice little break we had. I am Jesus Coronel, that is Dennis Geisler. We have our round 4 opponents, 2 undefeated trainers right now at 3-0, Riley Factura and Brandon Davis. Riley's going to be the perspective here with Miraidon, Whimsicott, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Iron Crown, Incineroar, and Ursaluna, with Brandon on the Urshifu Single Strike, Female Indeedee, Ursaluna, Torkoal, Ogerpon Wellspring, and the Lunala.
Yeah, and keep in mind here, with 6 rounds, with 38 Masters, it's probably going to be a bubble cutoff of 4-2, or the bubble will be at 4-2, and so getting to 4 wins here and having top-of-the-line resistance near the end, decently likely to get you through to the end, so pretty good chance for both these players. They're also both playing Ursaluna, which is kind of unusual, seeing both of them here. Riley with the Incineroar, Ursaluna, Whimsicott, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Iron Crown, and the Miraidon. Brandon with Indeedee Female, Urshifu Single Strike, Ogerpon Wellspring, Torkoal, Ursaluna, and the Lunala.
Yeah, that's the second time we've gone over these teams in case people forgot.
Yeah. Did I say it again?
Yeah.
My brain is absolutely juiced right now.
No, don't worry. We're reminding people at home.
I had pizza and I was really excited.
No, we're saying this again just in case people forgot or they're just tuning in.
Exactly, and if they can't see the screen right now. It's for the radio listeners. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing, because obviously you want to play Ursaluna with a bit of that Trick Room. Riley's doesn't actually have any Trick Room on that side. It's probably just Tailwind to try to boost up the Ursaluna's speed, actually. So it's going to be a question of how well Brandon can get Trick Room going and start playing around that.
Well, here we go. Game number 1 between Brandon and Riley. Brandon going to lead the Indeedee plus the Lunala, and there is Miraidon and Incineroar from Riley, so Brandon wins the Terrain War for now.
Yeah, and obviously that is a decent advantage right now, but I think the biggest advantage is just that Trick Room gets a lot easier to set. And also you have a pretty... Like, honestly, you don't even really have to play around with it a whole lot. You can just say, okay, it's time to click Trick Room with Indeedee and Meteor Beam with Lunala and try to start winning right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I kind of do want to not let Incineroar take a Meteor Beam right now. It is Assault Vest, so it might take a Meteor Beam, but certainly doesn't want to deal with that right now.
I mean, there's also the thing that I think Riley could do here is just clicking Discharge. And yeah, if you're going to click Discharge, Ursaluna is the perfect one to switch in.
Yeah, you know the Discharge is an option, although I don't know if that's necessary.
Okay, Helping Hand comes out from this Indeedee to help out the Lunala's damage output, whatever it goes for. It's just Volt Switch, which will break the Shadow Shield.
Yeah, and I wonder if Brandon really wanted to... Presumably this is going to be Meteor Beam, and I wonder if he wanted to Meteor Beam into whatever is about to be present on the field. Or whatever is present in terms of the Ursaluna switching in and whatever might be present, as in what will be switched in here.
Which will be Incineroar.
I'd imagine if you want to boost up and try doing a bunch of damage, you want to do it against the restricted, but we'll see.
I mean, if there's a Meteor Beam into the Miraidon slot, and it's still going to be doing a lot of damage to that Incineroar. It is Meteor Beam going to be used here, so it will remove that Power Herb, meaning knockoff is still going to be quite effective, but it's going to do less damage.
It's still going to knock
Yeah, it's still going to knock out damage. Okay, it's into the Ursaluna slot, so it was the Incineroar, but now it's moved places. And Ursaluna takes it half well.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty fine, all things considered, and there's a lot that you can do now on Riley's side. If you want to switch in Miraidon and get a takeout off, you can. That could be a nice way to prevent a Trick Room. Obviously, Lunala will not be able to be fake outed like that.
So we're going to protect just to make sure Expanding Force doesn't knock it out on that occasion. Yeah, it is Expanding Force coming out. So it's not going to do anything to Incineroar, but the important thing was Ursaluna, which went after. And Indeedee, in fact, undersped this Lunala, so it's probably the signal of Trick Room as Lunala gets hit with a U-turn.
I really am not a huge fan of the Trick Room, or excuse me, the U-turn decision there. I really would have preferred just a knockoff. I think it would have knocked out the Lunala, and at that point, what does Brandon do? Obviously, Brandon gets the Trick Room up, starts to try to play through that, but...
Terrain gets replaced, though.
Yeah, Terrain gets replaced, but you're not really doing anything with that Terrain right now. Obviously,
there's
the Expanding Force, yeah. So the Expanding Force isn't an option in the same way, but Lunala can still Moongeist Beam, it can still hit for pretty good damage, and you still have Indeedee there to follow me away certain hits, because I don't think Lunala's going to drop to Discharge.
I don't think so either. It might have to be that Electro Drift coming into that Lunala where...
But that's the idea of just getting to follow me away for Indeedee now, and that Lunala can just start hitting stuff.
Yeah, and that Moongeist Beam is just going to be doing a lot of damage to that Miraidon. Probably doesn't KO it unless like, it's heavily trained into that special attack stat. Whereas the Luna has a little bit easier time dealing with the Lunala, presuming it's a little more speedy than like the typical variants of this Ursaluna, because I would presume that Riley's would have some sort of speed because of that Whimsicott. But no, it's just going to switch out. It's going to be that Incineroar coming back in.
Yeah, a lot of early switching from Riley, and I'm just curious where the advantage is eventually going to come from, because currently there isn't really damage that has been done other than just kind of breaking the Shadow Shield.
And there is another Follow Me coming out from this Indeedee to redirect the attack away from the Lunala, but first Lunala fires off a Moongeist Beam into this Miraidon. Yeah, there you go, did not even knock it out, and Volt Switch comes out to this Indeedee and does not KO!
Indeedee takes the hit, and that is decently important for Brandon, because now if you want you can pull out the Indeedee, because the problem is that Indeedee could just get hit by the Fake Out now and knocked out, and it'll do a little bit of chip back to Incineroar, but if you want you could just switch out the Indeedee and switch it in later when you want to get Psychic Terrain up, and then like a small Follow Me and get a little bit done.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because like Brandon only has 3 turns left to Trick Room, and his sweeper, typically Torkoal, would love to switch into a position like this, but it's sort of an awkward swap, because Brandon wants one of these Pokemon to faint, but unfortunately that Volt Switch just did not KO at all, and now it's just that Riley can get a bit more damage off with that Incineroar or with that Ursaluna against that Lunala. Miraidon does not have a switch in, so I presume that Riley has to go on the offensive here.
Yeah, and I think it's completely fine that Riley is attacking now. I think actually what Brandon wants to do is probably switch in the Ursaluna. That's what you want to, yeah. The one that you want to switch into more than other guys is Ursaluna, because you can get the Flame Orb activation turn.
There's a Facade.
The concern here is now that this is knockoff, which will take away the Flame Orb. That would be the really... That would be pretty bad for Brandon.
I mean, I said if the knockoff went into that slot, and yes, it is. No more Flame Orb from Brandon's Ursaluna. Yeah, so Riley gets the advantage there.
And that was always my concern about making that play, and I think even this specific play is even weirder for doing that, because you're switching in the... You're switching in something that doesn't want to be hit by knockoff into the spot where knockoff already happened. Maybe Brandon is just really confident that Torkoal's going to win this game, though. I'm not going to write that off as a possibility.
I don't think so either, but the problem is that this Incineroar is holding that Assault Vest, meaning it's going to take Toy Specs Torkoal pretty well.
Yeah, but I don't know if it'll take a Headlong Rush after that, is the thing. And I think that between those, maybe Brandon has a play here. I'm not... I don't think Brandon has a great shot in this first game here, but I think that there are small outs.
Yeah, there was a hole in his Trick Room remains. I think last time we chatted, it's a 2 turns left to Trick Room.
Yeah, 2 turns left. And the thing is, I think Riley can switch around enough to stall out 2 turns. I don't think you're able to do it if you just leave those Pokemon in.
No Terra from
protecting, but yeah.
There is an Aper side, and yeah. Brandon did not Terra just yet. It's going to be an Eruption coming out into this side of Riley, so it is going to put the Whimsicott down to that Focus Sash. It's going to depend on whether or not they're still going to, from Brandon, targeted the Incineroar slot, now the Whimsicott.
Shocking if it did not hit the...
Yeah, it's a Headlong Rush too.
I think it has to be the Headlong Rush into that slot, because that was the only thing that got rid of the Incineroar, or even seriously damaged the Incineroar. So, again, the problem here is that... And I mean, I guess that's the upside for Brandon, is that Riley basically just sacked Whimsicott there for not a whole lot. And the question is, because now you do actually get the Fake Out turn with Incineroar. Yeah, that is actually really hard for Brandon, because the Fake Out turn for Incineroar is now here, and that means Torkoal is going to...
I think the Fake Out has to go near Ursaluna, though, because your end game is basically the Miraidon plus Incineroar, because you know you're outspeeding the rest of Brandon's Pokemon. Lunala has Trick Room, but it's at a weak enough point, especially with this Electric Terrain, where I think Electric Drift just finishes the game off. And I think the worry for Riley is that Ursaluna, and I think that's who you gotta fake out.
I think the concern in the long term is Ursaluna, but I do think you have to fake out the Torkoal right now because you want to not take that damage.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then Terra Water makes more sense on Incineroar because you want to take that Headlong Rush.
Yeah, you're fine with taking the Headlong Rush. It'll do some damage, but as long as you're able to play this out, the medium to slow side, yeah, you fake out the Torkoal. It doesn't get to do anything.
No, it does not get to do much of anything here.
Headlong
into the Torkoal. That's going to knock it out, though.
Riley's is faster under Trick Room. It's slower, faster, slower.
It's slower really naturally. Slower train. There you go.
Yeah, that's not really what I was expecting.
Facade going to finish off the Ursaluna from Riley, but he's fine with it because now it's Miraidon and Incineroar in a perfect spot.
Yeah,
but it's going to depend on whether or not Miraidon locks into an electric move, because I think it's more likely now it locks Dragon Pulse.
Yeah, it can't lock into an electric move since Ursaluna is here, and Incineroar does not beat Ursaluna one-on-one, I don't think. And so you do kind of have to lock. And that's the nice thing, is you do have Dragon Pulse instead of Draco Meteor, so you don't have to worry about missing, and you don't have to worry about your damage getting lower each time.
And something that Brandon has to worry about is that Assault Bust on Incineroar, because he cannot knock out the... his Lunala cannot knock out the Incineroar.
Yeah, I don't know. I say all of this, and then I'm like, I don't know where Brandon gets damage onto Incineroar. I think the big thing is that Brandon just has to knock out the Miraidon and figure something out for Incineroar, because it can't do much to you, but you can't do much to it. It's going to be kind of awkward. I honestly wonder if you do lock into Electro Drift just to get the... Well, no, that doesn't really make any sense. Just to get the Lunala out of the way, just because the Ursaluna has taken so many Headlong Rush drops that...
Hold on, Terra Water. Hold on. Yeah, I was going to say, Terra Water on Lunala still keeps it around against that knockoff, so
yeah.
It's going to come down to whether or not Incineroar can take as many hits against Lunala as it can, because keep a note, knockoff's not doing a lot of damage anymore because of that power herb being consumed earlier.
Yeah. I like that.
Oh, wow!
Yeah. No, I like that play, because you know if you get the Lunala out of the way, you know your Miraidon is useless for the rest of this battle, although you're locked into... What's funny is you're locked into Electro Drift, so after using this, 7 more times, then you will get to use another move. But the big thing here is that, yeah, I mean, Ursaluna's at -2 defense and special defense. It's going to take a ton of damage against anything Incineroar does, and Incineroar isn't really going to take any damage against this Ursaluna. It doesn't even have the...
There's the Electro Drift just hitting nothing, hitting the air.
Guts boost, and so it just doesn't...
Yeah, here's Flare Blitz in the sun against the Ursaluna. That is gonna do it. Riley wins game number 1.
Yeah, and... I don't know. I think that Brandon just played the early turns a little weird. Lunala just ended up taking a little bit too much damage early. It was one of those games where you don't really see why people play Lunala, you know? Like, there are games, and obviously Lunala's won a regional, but there are games where you're like, okay, I don't really see why people are playing Lunala, because it didn't really do anything there. Meteor Beam is kind of awkward to have to use first of all, and if you hit it into the wrong target, you don't get to do anything. Expanding Force and Moongeist Beam being your stab moves are not terrible, but it does feel really awkward just a lot of the time, especially into this Miraidon matchup, where you do have the ability to overwrite terrain. It's just a matter for Brandon of just probably getting the Trick Room up earlier and getting the Trick Room sweepers in earlier, those being Torkoal and Ursaluna, and obviously not getting Flame Orb knocked off for Ursaluna, because that mattered a lot.
Did it matter in the sense that it didn't get enough damage off, but because, like, the only damage it got was 1 HP on Whimsicott, a very low HP Ursaluna, and then nothing else.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think that you could have... I don't know. I think the end game plays out possibly a little bit differently, especially because, like, if you know that you have Flame Orb up, then you're able to click Facade instead of Headlong Rush in a lot of cases, and that is a lot better. I don't know. We'll see how that changes in the later games, but I do think that there are things played around where that matters.
Yeah, let's just see what changes here in this game number 2 here between two undefeated trainers in Brandon Davis and Riley Factura. And here comes the leads from Brandon. It's Urshifu and Needy this time. What's the lead from Riley? Miraidon and Incineroar. So once again, Brandon wins the terrain war, but this might be a bit of an awkward spot for each of these players because, well, Miraidon does great damage onto the Urshifu, but Urshifu has just as damage just as much as everything else.
Yeah, and I want to know what Urshifu's here to do. Obviously, Wicked Blow does tons of damage to the things that Wicked Blow does tons of damage to, and Brandon doesn't know it, but it seems like Riley has a bunch of stuff that doesn't want to take Wicked Blow.
Or close combat.
Or close combat for that matter, but you're at -1, so you don't necessarily want to be using close combat. And obviously getting Indeedee an opportunity to Trick Room is obviously good.
Yeah, because like if this is a Trick Room team, because like when you use a Trick Room team, you have to utilize like your best means to get Trick Room up as fast as you can. And important to note, Brandon's Urshifu's Choice Scarf, so this is fast means to get it's like a hit and then go away. You do something right now with the Stellar Terra Urshifu, try to get as much damage as you can to something, expect a feint, or you expect to get fainted and then Trick Room for your partner. No Trick Room this time, but we are using a helping hand. Is presumably Wicked Blow onto the Miraidon.
Yeah, I think it has to be.
Yeah, there's some Wicked Blow coming out into this target. Yeah, there's a Miraidon. Does it go down? Yes!
I mean, that's a play. I like that play, and I think that it doesn't work more than once because Riley is just like, okay, I'm out of here. Just hard switch out the Miraidon instead of messing around with that. But that certainly put Brandon at a pretty big advantage, and now
terrain's in his favor.
Yeah, and terrain is in his favor, but in general, getting rid of your opponent's restricted turn 1 without having to do anything to your own restricted, it's gonna win the game more often than not. That's the secret to Reg G, is take out the other person's restricted and keep your own restricted perfectly healthy.
Yeah, it seems to be like the formula here in this regulation onwards, and there have been like pseudo restrictors here and there. I still think Ursaluna is technically a pseudo restricted, for how powerful it is in Trick Room. But that's just Trick Room sweepers in general. Yeah, we need Ursaluna switch in here, but there's no Trick Room. And well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that you're not getting hit by close combat. The bad news is you're still taking Wicked Blow damage. I mean, that's presuming that Urshifu wants to stick around for much longer.
Yeah, I think that.
And there's the Iron Crown from Riley. That's the last Pokemon.
Yeah, Iron Crown we're seeing for the first time, and I don't think Iron Crown is doing much good here.
I mean, it's not doing much unless it terrestrializes away from that Psychic type.
Yeah, and even then, it's still providing a juicier target to hit with Wicked Blow here. I don't think Brandon will be super upset if either of these Pokemon drop here. I do think you have to play a little bit careful, because there is damage remaining with Iron Crown and Ursaluna, but yeah, I like the switch out there. You maintain the Stellar, you're able to hit something else with that Stellar boost.
Yeah, and here is that Lunala coming in the back of the Urshifu. Iron Crown immediately switches out of play, and just to get out of its own Psychic type weakness, and here comes the Incineroar to better take a Wicked Blow, but unfortunately, Urshifu's not there anymore. See that Intimidate drop on both of these Pokemon now, and Prasad into the Ghost type. Unfortunately, does not find the Urshifu in that slot. Trick Room gets set up.
Ooh, okay. I was wondering if it was going to be the Trick Room. I don't dislike this at all, and I think at this point it's a question of what does Lunala want to do and what order does it want to do those things in. Because I do think, and this Ursaluna is Substitute Ursaluna on Riley's side, which could give it a couple things to do, because I do think that the obvious move right now for Brandon is a Meteor Beam into the Incineroar. And I don't know if the Lunala underspeeds the Incineroar to actually get the attack off first instead of the U-turn.
I think the better question to ask in that regard is, like, do you expect the Incineroar to switch out to Iron Crown? Because Iron Crown does resist Meteor Beam.
Yeah, it's the question of does it want to hard switch out, and the question of does it want to U-turn out, because you do want to break the Shadow Shield.
Alright, here's Helping Hand from this Indeedee to help out Lunala once again to get that damage boosted, pumped. Here's Ursaluna slower, so it's going to get the Substitute off, so it will tank at least one hit from that Substitute, and Incineroar does U-turn, breaks the Shadow Shield, and switches into the Iron Crown.
Yeah. I definitely like that decision from Riley, knowing that Incineroar is slower. Because now, I think we can probably assume that this is going to be a meteor.
It's expanding force.
Expanding force, okay.
So Ursaluna takes one hit for that substitute. Iron Crown just takes it really well, too.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly... I mean, you're getting damage down. I don't think Brandon's horribly upset about this, because it was basically just a really expensive protect for Ursaluna there, and... I mean, Ursaluna's already on a timer with a burn, and this isn't going to help it. Obviously, you're stalling out turns of Trick Room if you're Riley, but that's not necessarily what you need to do to win this game.
Oh, not at all, because we've seen this a lot from Trick Room teams, especially nowadays, but like, if you don't get your damage off in Trick Room, you're basically giving up.
I will say, on Riley's side, the advantage here is that you did already break Shadow Shield, and Ursaluna is still out there. If you try to headlong rush into the Lunala, does that do enough damage? Probably not. And also you have to be worried about just follow me. So I don't know if Riley has a great option here. I think that, the switch out is not a bad idea, and try to just take as little damage as possible and get Indeedee out of the way if possible, and I don't know, move from there.
Yeah, there's an Intimidate coming out once again into the special attackers, unfortunately. There's a Follow Me, as you said, to redirect the attackers away from the Lunala, as Lunala gets another Expanding Force on, which does nothing to interfere with that Dark typing. 40 HP? No, not this time. It goes down to 97. Tachyon Cutter. Oh, that looks close to knocking out an Indeedee. I think it is the high roll, which it did not even get.
Yeah, but... Well, and the problem is Iron Crown, I think, is still slower than... or faster than Incineroar, so it'll go last in Trick Room, or go after Incineroar in Trick Room, and ideally, if you're Riley right now, you want to knock out the Indeedee after it Follow Me's, and then hit Lunala with a knockoff. And I don't know if you're going to get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Lunala's still in a tough position. You know, you want to click knockoff on Lunala, because now you know it cannot Terastallize to water to, resist, or at least make Dark types neutral to knockoff anymore, and so it's like it's two birds on one stone. So yeah, you go Follow Me again on a need to make sure knockoff does not go into the Lunala there. So it's gonna get KO'd. It's gonna come down to whether or not this Lunala went for Meteor Beam, which I think it has to go for this time, because like you're not doing enough damage to the Iron Crown with Expanding Force, especially when you tried doing it twice to the Ursaluna and just couldn't find it. Okay, another Expanding Force. It tried to find Ursaluna again, but it's still getting progressive damage onto this Iron Crown. That's not good. And attacking on Cutter lands again. This should take Lunala to half, and yeah,
it does a nice little chunk of damage. And keep in mind, Lunala doesn't have Protect, so it's the Psychic Terrain disappears, and
Ursaluna from Brandon's the last Pokemon on his side.
Yeah, and I think there's one more turn of Trick Room remaining. Thankfully, thankfully for Brandon, the Ursaluna is probably the one that's going to move first here. The problem is, I guess because you really need to get Lunala out of here as fast as possible if you're Riley. And I'm not sure that you have the tools to do that on the field right now. I mean, that's the problem. You lose your Restricted immediately, and you have to play 3v4 with your best Pokemon not there, and you're lacking so many tools. But I think there is a way for Riley to get this Lunala out of the way and try to start winning this game.
Yeah, because I was going to say, even if Trick Room goes away, you still got to deal with a Choice Scarf first with Single Strike in the back, and if you got to deal with that out of Trick Room, that might not be the best thing to do here. And well, we see a Terastallization from Incineroar to Water again to make sure it lives well from the Headlong Rush.
Yeah, it'll take a lot of these hits reasonably well now.
It's Earthquake. It's going to damage Brandon's own Lunala, which hangs on and knocks out Iron Crown. Where did this Incineroar target? If it targeted the Lunala, this might be... okay, never mind. Didn't matter.
No, it takes out the Lunala. That's good. The big question here is just...
Can you deal with the Urshifu?
Can you deal with the Urshifu for one, which is going to be difficult now that it's able to just move as fast as it wants, and... Yeah, that did a lot of damage with Earthquake for not being Guts boosted.
Yeah, I also want to go back to why Brandon went Earthquake, because you expected the Lunala to go down that turn anyway, so it's what do you lose by going for Earthquake there?
Yeah, and I mean, especially if you know the Lunala takes that amount of damage, then, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it takes knockoff after getting a little bit more damaged, and you get to hit everything.
Here we go. It's a Stellar Terror fighting boost. Close combat into the Ursa Luna. That is a knockout. Very comfortably. So, okay, never mind, game. We don't need a critical hit there.
Yeah, it's Urshifu. It gets critical hits, you know?
Not close combat.
I think that's the game.
I think so too. And yeah, we see the Flare Whisk go into the Ursa Luna. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but I have to accept the Ursa Luna and just throw out a random attack into the Incineroar. And it's a Facade. That's going to do it. Game number 3 is going to be coming up next as Brandon evens the set.
Yeah. And it was, again, it was a really long game, honestly, but it did mostly stem from Brandon knocking out Miraidon on turn 1. And Riley is not going to fall for that again. So the question now is, how does Brandon adapt to that? Because, like, Brandon has to... How do I put this? Brandon has to find a way to do something as disruptive as that, as what happened in Game 2, but something else. And I really don't know if he's going to be able to. And he could just go back to a more standard Trick Room thing and just try to get Trick Room off turn 1 instead of any of the, like, Terra Stellar Wicked Blow, Helping Hand Wicked Blow
Here's
stuff.
the thing. He went for it turn 1, Brandon did, and it ended up paying off. So, like, I think Brandon either has to assume that, okay, if I see that happen again, I could try to go for the knockout on the Miraidon again, or I could just try to knock something else out in the other slot.
Riley has to know that that's not... Riley has to know to not let that happen again, and Brandon has to know that Riley's not going to let him do that again.
I was about to go even deeper with that, because like, if you know that's going to probably happen, then like you have to expect something different.
Yeah. Like, it does kind of get into people's heads after a while, and we'll see, I guess, where that ends up playing. But again, I think it could come substantially down to what happens on turn 1 again.
And here we go, game 3 of round number 4. It's going to be Urshifu and DD again from Brandon. It's going to be Incineroar Miraidon again from Riley. So, we saw one possibility from these two trainers. We saw Helping Hand, Stellar Terra, Urshifu, Wicked Blow into the Miraidon. And Incineroar just went for a U-turn last time. And do we see that happen again?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think that the thing that would be obvious for me on Brandon's side is U-turn from Urshifu and Trick Room from Indy.
I mean that's one way to deal with Wicked Blow.
Yeah.
Just getting hard switching to Miraidon into a resist. That's actually a pretty good move.
I mean, yeah, that is one way about it. But yeah, I think, and I mean, if I'm Brandon, the way that I try to deal with this is that I just get Urshifu out of the way and switch in like a Torkoal or even a Lunala or even Ursaluna, who would then get its Flame Orb up in Trick Room and just start being able to sweep.
And yeah, there is a Miraidon switching in for the Urshifu just in case Stellar Terra Helping Hand Wicked Blow goes into that slot again. Oh my god, Brandon Terra again. Brandon Terra, and I think this is the Urshifu again with that Stellar typing. No, it's Indeedee. It's Indeedee the Fairy.
Cool, I'm into it. Preventing the knockoff, you're just trying to get the Trick Room up, I like it.
Alright, time to see what the Urshifu is.
If it is just getting the Trick Room up, I like it.
It's U-turn. It goes into the Urshifu, so
it's that thing I said, it's the move I said.
Alright, time to see what switches in here, because I would love to see Torkoal switch in here, depending on what this Incineroar did, because I don't think Lunala is great into this Trick Room here. Oh, Ursaluna might be better!
Yeah, I like Ursaluna a lot here, assuming that it doesn't get hit with knockoff, but it's the Indeedee that gets hit with knockoff, which is absolutely fine for Brandon, and then you get Trick Room up. And so you'll get, Trick Room. Ursaluna is just going to start steamrolling stuff. It is burned now. So it has the Guts boost. That is a great turn for Brandon. That is basically exactly as I would have wanted to draw it up if I was Brandon, and exactly what I feel like Riley needed to avoid. Like, honestly, as crazy as a move as it was, I feel like Riley just had to leave Miraidon in again and try to just stop this exact play, because this is exactly what I would want to do if I was Brandon.
That's the thing, though. You saw game 2, Riley lost to Mariah in turn 1, and then Riley...
and I think you had to just gut check it and say, you're not doing it again. You're not trying that again. You know that I know that you can do that.
But it's like it's just like as you said, if you lose your restricted, it's pretty bad. And I think Riley didn't want to take that risk.
But at the same time, now you're setting up, I mean, as you said, an extremely strong Pokemon in Ursaluna. And we'll see how much Ursaluna is actually able to accomplish here.
Yeah, and there's Terra Water on Incineroar just to make sure you don't get super effective Earthquake or Headlong Rush.
Yeah, but even still, Facade is going to do a lot of damage. And I would imagine you want to start with...
Follow Me.
Yeah, Follow Me, one, just to stop a lot of the incoming damage on
It's Facade into the Incineroar. There was no ground-type move, and Incineroar goes down, and the Terra goes down too!
Yeah. Terra did absolutely nothing there, and we are still watching a bear do a bunch of damage.
And another bear doing another damage.
Very lucky for Riley that he already... Well, not very lucky, I mean, you do it on purpose, but very convenient for Riley that the Rocky Helmet was knockoff for the Indeedee already. But Surging Strikes didn't even KO. So another Follow Me can come through, and that will mean at least one more knockout for Ursaluna, certainly.
Yeah, Ursaluna from Brandon is absolutely wreaking havoc right now, and we did see a line of hope from Riley that is Ursaluna slower, but he needs to turn to set that up, because the Flame Orb's not up.
Yeah, the Flame Orb's not up. You can just use this turn to get rid of Indeedee, which is nice, but... it's an awkward turn because you're either losing Urshifu right now or you're protecting Urshifu and letting Brandon get something else in while Ursaluna doesn't really take any damage.
I think this is a double protect turn from Riley as Indeedee switches out.
That's interesting.
And it's going to switch out to Brandon's last Pokemon, Lunala.
Okay.
And so, the reason I say the double detect there is to make sure you don't take damage and you activate your Flame Orb simply because, again, you know your Ursaluna slower than Brandon, supposedly.
Yeah. But I think, and I mean, I don't dislike that play, even though it was, because this is how I kind of expected this play to run, because the Facade really had to come into the Urshifu, and Indeedee's not doing anything. So you know that you get to knock out the Indeedee, because you just need to be doing as much damage as possible right now. If you're Riley, you're way behind. So you just need to do something like that, and you weren't going to take any damage regardless. Unfortunately, Indeedee switched out, and so the Facade didn't really do anything, but Riley didn't lose anything that turn. The problem is Riley also didn't really gain anything that turn.
And yeah, and another problem arises, and that's just Lunala having Shadow Shield, which it's going to be fine against Headlong Rush. It's going to be immune to the Facade, but most certainly won't appreciate the Surging Strikes because it's multi-hit. And now comes the Miraidon in place of that Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's going to be a Protect turn from Brandon's Ursaluna. That's another thing. He knows he's slower. So it's going to be a Facade into the obvious Protect of the Ursaluna from Brandon from Riley's Ursaluna. And it's time to see what the Lunala did here. It's expanding course. It's going to target down this Miraidon slot. It just does about half.
Yeah. It's, I mean, not terrible damage there, obviously, but I now wonder where Brandon necessarily wants to take this. Because the thing is, Lunala is still not under real danger. I think we have one turn of Trick Room remaining.
It should be.
If my count is roughly correct. But the thing is, Lunala's not really in any danger. You have to at least double it up to actually break the Shadow Shield and do real damage to it. And you absolutely cannot double it up with Ursaluna on the field, or whatever else follows it on the field, which... Oh, no, it'll be...
Well, we know there's an Indeedee and Urshifu in the back for
and so
Brandon.
when Urshifu's on the field, you absolutely can't double it up either.
Yeah, because it's too fast for you.
Yeah, but also, like, you need to get rid of the Urshifu quickly, because otherwise it's just going to hit you with...
Facade! Oh, wait a minute, that's a Speed Tide!
Oh,
Ursula survives!
It was Speed Tide the whole time. I mean, the thing is, even though that Riley's Ursaluna did take the hit, it's now on a timer. Like, a very serious timer. It takes 2 more...
Moon Ice Beam goes into the 2D Miraidon.
Might KO.
It does, and and as you said, there's a timer on the Ursula, which is harshly made because of Brandon losing the Speed Tie.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't really matter that much.
It goes on to the next burn turn!
Yeah, it'll be 2 more, it'll be 1 more turn after this, but it doesn't really matter because now you can bring in...
No, Urshifu faints in 1 turn because that was 13 chip damage!
Yeah. No, Ursaluna drops to the next turn, but it might not matter just because, the expanding force is just going to KO everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because this Surging Strikes is not going to KO Lunala anytime soon, because the first hit's going to get taken.
Well, also because Follow Me is going to come out.
Yeah, that's it. Brandon Davis gets the comeback victory and reverse sweeps Riley in round number 4 with a 2-1 win. Wow.
That was a wild one. That was a real wild one. And
That's 4-0 on the day for Brandon.
And to think we would have saw a different discussion if we saw the speed tie go Riley's way.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And I mean, obviously there were so many speed ties in that set, and there are a lot of ways for those to play out eventually, but it was definitely, I mean, it was just really well played by Brandon. And again, we've seen so many weird restricteds today. We've seen Rayquaza, we've seen Lunala, we've seen Koraidon. Like, we've seen so many very odd restricted choices. And a lot of this is on the top end of people. Like, David was at 3-0 playing the Rayquaza. Brandon's now at 4-0 playing the Lunala. It's interesting seeing a lot of these picks going later on to the reg.
Yeah, I really wish we had something to know about these usage stats, because oh my god, I love to see the discussions about how these restricted Pokemon are being played. We've seen so many restricted Pokemon being played. We've yet to see certain amount of restricteds. We've seen 6 different restricteds right now, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more later on today. As we're going to take another break, we might see more restricteds to round number 5. Don't go anywhere.